Good evening. Welcome to this regular scheduled business meeting of the Summersville City Council on this 27th day of July 2020. As we have moved to the Arena and Conference Center and away from City Hall, we do so that we comply. Number one, everybody wore their mask coming in. At this time, because we are at a social distance, I invite you, if you want, to remove your mask. Anytime we get ready to get up and maneuver around, that's when, of course, we would ask that you kindly put them back on. I want to welcome everybody tonight. We have a very lengthy agenda, so we want to get right at it. With that said, I would go to the first item on the agenda, and that's consideration of our council minutes from the meeting we held on July 13th of 2020.
Move to approve and waive the reading.
Second.
Okay, council, we have a motion with the first and the second, and to waive the reading. Are there any changes or amendments to those minutes as they were presented in your package? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion so carries. Public comment. Gary, did anybody sign up?
No.
Okay. Hearing none. Okay, having no public comment, the next agenda item is a presentation requesting approval. The presentation is from WVU SRMC, and it's leasing of the extended care facility beds. And at this time, I'd like to welcome to the podium CEO Karen Boland.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you all for the opportunity to be able to present and talk about what I think is going to be some very exciting news for the city of Summersville. I think, as you all know, a little over 2 years ago, I know I came to Summersville Regional Medical Center and was fortunate to be the CEO of the hospital under a management agreement. Part of that process was, an ongoing review of things that we needed to do that would be in the best interest of this community, and of course the hospital and the residents that we serve in our extended care facility. At that time, we actually, as we moved forward with our lease, we discussed what would be what we felt like the appropriate action that we would take to ensure that our residents in our extended care facility receive the best care possible. We think we do that already. We do a fine job at our ECF, currently within Summersville Regional Medical Center. But as we look at the advances and things that go on in today's society, we know that there are great opportunities to continue to serve our residents in an extended care facility in a more modern facility. The reality is that particular part of the hospital was actually the original convalescent home. Some of you have heard the mayor give a little bit about the history and what's occurred there. And we know that there are things that we can do in a new modern facility that will be better for our residents long term. And because we are in a lease with WVU Medicine, we work very closely with the mayor and others to try to think of a solution or a strategy around our extended care facility to ensure, one, that we continue to serve them, providing quality health care to them, but also to think about how we can move forward and provide them with a residence that we all can be very proud of. In addition, we also know there's a big need here in this Summersville area, and we also know that we have a waiting list to get into our extended care facility. So what is the best strategy? Well, we believe the best strategy is to find a partner, a vendor, who would then sublease our existing beds and build a new one. When someone subleases and builds a new one, we also think there's going to be greater opportunity for the potential for expansion. So I think all in all, this is really, really exciting for us to consider. We think there will be individuals that will be interested in being a subleasee, but we don't know that until we put out a request for proposals. So what I would like to do is invite Jessica Alsop, who is the General Counsel for WVU Hospitals, to come up and talk a little bit about what the request for proposal does, the specifics around it, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Karen, and thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's hard to believe it's been almost 2 years since I was before you all. reading through a very dry and boring lease. So this will be shorter, and I hope it answers all your questions. So I'm just going to give you an overview of the RFP and the process set forth in it to select a bidder, and then I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. So just generally, the RFP is seeking bidders to take over operation of the 52 skilled nursing beds at Summersville and build a new facility. The RFP requires that the new facility be built within city limits and that it be built within the next 3 years. To bid on the RFP, the bidder must have operated at least one Medicare and Medicaid certified skilled nursing facility within the past 5 years. They must propose to operate a market appropriate number of skilled nursing beds in the area for a minimum of 45 years. And if you remember, our lease was a 50-year lease. And the reason for the 45 is that we're now a year into the lease, and that we put on 3 more years. That'll bring us down to almost 45 years. So at least 45 years, the facility will be operated. Construct a new facility within the city limits within the next 3 years. Offer employment to all the eligible employees of Summersville Regional Medical Center that are currently working in that facility, as well as accepting the residents that are currently within that facility into the new facility. They would also have to agree to comply with all the requirements of the operating lease that we have in place, Summersville Regional Medical Center has in place with the city and the building commission. The RFP is going to require the bidders to provide information on their past experience and capabilities, describe the bidder's analysis of what changes they think may be needed in the long-term care facility market and how the bidder is going to address those specific to the Summersville facility. We want to find out their past accomplishments with long-term care facilities. We want to know the key leaders who are going to oversee this project here in Summersville. We want to hear about their vision for a new facility and how it's going to relate to the city of Summersville. Obviously, a description of the new facility and the location, including the number of beds and the services that are going to be offered in that facility, will have to be in the RFP as well. They're going to have to provide some experience, a summary of their experience to demonstrate their ability to finance, design, construct, and operate the facility, and a commitment to ensuring the beds continue to be available in the future for the residents of Nicholas County. And then a proposed rental rate for the operation of the beds, and last, a timeline for the project. Once the bids are, once the RFP is sent out, assuming it's approved by council tonight and the building commission tomorrow, we're going to send it out tomorrow. The bidders will be able to submit multiple proposals for different options on a project. The site visits to Summersville Regional Medical Center's current facility will be available, assuming we can do that in a compliant manner with COVID and the current situation at that time. We have those scheduled now for August, but obviously that's subject to change based on the conditions. Proposals will be due back by October 9th. Once they're received, there's going to be a preliminary review of the proposals just to make sure that they meet the minimum requirements set forth in the RFP. From there, an evaluation committee, which is going to include representatives from Summersville Regional Medical Center, City Council, and the Building Commission, will score the proposals based on the requirements set forth in the RFP. The schedule provides that the committee is going to hold in-person interviews with the bidders October 26th that week. And then after that, the committee will reconvene to update the scores according to the interviews. And the plan is to have the highest scoring proposal brought back to the City Council and Building Commission for a vote at the November 23rd meeting. From there, we move forward with the winning bidder to negotiate the terms of the lease and other agreements needed for the new facility. And that provides a high-level overview of the RFP that was in your packet. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have on the specifics of that, or Karen, I'm sure, would be willing to answer any questions you have about what's entailed in this process.
Okay. Jessica, that was a great overview. I would also like to mention that tonight present with us is the chairman of the building commission, Fletcher Harold, and also member Don McKenzie. So two of the three are here. And so during this question period, gentlemen, if you have any questions, you're also invited. If there's anything that you all want to ask at this time, I would invite you along with counsel, either of Karen or Jessica, any questions. Counsel, do you have anything? Okay.
Is it legal?
Is it legal? Yes, it is legal.
Beds, I mean, all the beds up there, before, they've been supposed to be there all the time, so I didn't know if that was supposed to be in the same building.
Your question is there any requirement based on the lease for the extended care facility to stay within the facility? There is not a requirement for that. Actually, I would say that we contemplated from the very beginning there was going to be a need to do something related to our extended care facility, just because, you know, we do an outstanding job. So I want to make sure that I've been very clear about that. But the physical plant is the oldest section of the hospital, and it was going to need something. And we felt like a new building was really the only way to ensure that we were doing the right thing by the residents and to build a modern facility. Quite honestly, you cannot renovate that area to have been compliant with the nursing home regulations. It just would not have been possible. So really that was the only alternative. And I think from day one, you know, we did have discussions with the mayor and others about the need to do something with our extended care facility. And we think this is the best option. And we're very hopeful that we'll get more than one person interested so that we can ensure that we're going to get the best possible partner, you know, going forward.
No questions? The only thing I would like to add is, did somebody else have something down? Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Is 52 a viable number for building a new facility?
You know, that's a very good question. You know, I think you would have to ask, you know, the nursing home vendors that are going to be bidding. My belief, and it's only a personal opinion, is that whoever gets it will want to add beds. Two reasons. One is that within the current structure with our 52 beds, we are viable and we do fine. There is no loss on our extended care facility. So yes, within our facility, we're able to break even or slightly above, so it works. But once you move in outside the walls of the building, remember we share overhead with the hospital. And so, you know, my belief is any vendor will be interested in adding beds, and there are a couple of different ways that can happen depending on who the selected vendor might be. But my belief is whoever does it to prove their financial viability will try to add beds to the facility. I don't know what the number might be.
Will that be a part of their proposal?
Yes, it will be. Because again, as Jessica pointed out, you know, part of what we're doing is they have to present how they're going to be able to ensure that it's financially stable, because that's going to be really important to all of us to ensure that going forward this nursing home is going to exist and be able to serve the people of Summersville and Nicholas County.
Thank you.
Sorry about
What
that.
is the average cost of a patient per month?
That's a great question. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head what the average cost would be.
Well, let's say it's $4,000. If we get a new facility, a new vendor with upgraded facilities, what's their cost going to be?
Well, it will be, you know, dependent on, you know, in West Virginia, we have what's called rate review. So you can't just arbitrarily choose an amount that you're going to charge. You have to be able to discuss exactly how you go about doing that. And you have to keep in mind that probably, and I would have to defer maybe even to Joe, but I would say 85% of our residents are Medicaid. And that is a state rate. So it will not impact an increased rate, should that occur, would have very little impact on the current residents.
Okay, good question. Anybody else? Okay, what a another great opportunity all the way around for our community. Anybody that's been to the extended care facility any time of recent, I would say the last decade, Karen's comments about, that is the original foundation of this community hospital that's now WVU-SRMC. The hospital did start as a convalescent home, so from an infrastructure standpoint, this is badly needed. So it's exciting not only for Nicholas Countyans, but certainly also for the residents and the employees, because it's just going to be a win-win for everybody if if we get some takers on this. So again, another exciting move about the future here in Summersville and what this community will offer its residents. So with that said, if we have no further questions, I will entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
We have a first,
Second.
second, and council, any last additional questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion so carries. Next, what I'd like to do is I would like to appoint City Council member Jim Epling to represent the City Council, and also appoint the Building Commission chairperson, chairman, Fletcher Harold will also sit on that selection committee. So both of those gentlemen will be joining you all through the process. So want to also highlight that there's been a lot of work bringing this to the table. So again, I thank you, Karen, Jessica, I thank you, and also I thank you, Greg, our city attorney, who has also been involved in the process. So with that, I know some of you have some travels, and I'll allow you all to excuse yourself.
Thank you.
Thank you
Yeah.
all very much.
And the Building Commission's meeting tomorrow at noon, and we will
You'll let me
forward
know.
immediately to you once they've approved it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Good seeing you. Thank you.
Gentlemen, we'll see you tomorrow at noon. Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is to discuss and approve a mobile home setting at 307 Broad Street. We have Pastor Stacy here with us tonight to answer any questions. And Pastor Stacy, I got to apologize to you. It was just today that I reached out and requested the actual document, because I talked to the city attorney this morning and was concerned about I wanted to make sure that we hit it right on what the requirement was from a percentage standpoint on the approval, which is 75%. But I also read here this evening, as it was presented to me, that this actually, it says that it comes to City Council after it was reviewed by Planning and Zoning and a recommendation is made. So what I would do tonight, because you're here, so what we're going to need to do is kick it back to Planning and Zoning. Gary has said that he might even try to put a quick emergency meeting together with them, so you don't have to wait, and we'll try to expedite this as quick as possible. But it does have to come as a recommendation from Planning and Zoning. Now, it doesn't mean that Planning and Zoning has to say they want it. They can also recommend to us that they don't think it should happen, and this body would still vote on whether it happens or not. This ordinance requires that you first go to Planning and Zoning and they make a recommendation to City Council.
Okay.
So if your packet was very informative, kind of highlighted exactly what your intentions were, clearly displayed where you planned on setting it, I would invite you, certainly you would be invited to come back after it goes through that process, but if there's anything additional you want to say to your packet, I would invite you to do so. And council, I would also invite any of you that may have questions or concerns if you wanted to express them tonight. But in lieu of what the ordinance says, that it's a recommendation from
Sure.
planning and zoning,
Sure.
we'll have to go through that process.
Will I need to just submit that packet to that board?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Or is there an actual application?
It's gotta get,
Um,
well, plus it's gotta get approval from town.
Yeah, I would say the packet that you got, excuse me, now would just simply be forwarded to the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Right.
Of course, they need to meet, review it, discuss it, and then make a recommendation to council. So, either way, it'll come back before this body, for a decision, because what they merely do is make a recommendation.
Right.
Mayor, I haven't seen the packet that was presented to council, but there's a first step, and that's you have to approach the adjoining landowners.
Okay?
Well, that would be the church.
And that's fine, you're gonna need that to get to planning and zoning.
Okay,
Okay,
okay.
okay.
Mayor,
Yes.
I'd like to ask Pastor Dingus, have you read our ordinance in Article 1105?
No, I have not, sir.
Because you probably should read that. I took a look at it this evening, and it outlines the process and what is required
Okay,
of you as far as planning and zoning is concerned.
And Jim, those are steps you have to get to planning and zoning, those processes. That's how you get to planning and zoning.
But it pretty much details what needs to be done.
all right.
Yeah.
I have time. I mean,
Yeah, okay,
it's not
okay.
like we have
That's
to-
what we understood.
We have to hurry
Okay,
to do this.
Okay.
I'd like to, if it's going to be done, I'd like to have it done before the end of the year. But if it's not.
yeah, I certainly think if this body's gonna approve it, we can meet that timeline. And actually, hearing that is actually good news, because, do you all have a regular scheduled meeting in August?
Not yet.
Okay, not yet. So anyway, you've got time to go back and review exactly because frankly, I'm going to be straight with you here. I laid my eyes on it today, and I saw where it said that it required a recommendation to this board from planning and zoning.
Right.
And so we just need to follow those steps, take it back, kick it back, and then of course, I think Gary can get in touch with you and maybe put in your hands the ordinance that Jim is referencing.
That would-
Is that this ordinance right here,
That would
Jim?
be
The
good.
actual one? Yeah,
It's 1105.
yeah. Is that what this one is, Gary? Okay. Anyway, we'll get everything in your, properly to you, Pastor, so you can review it and
Great.
then take it back before planning and zoning.
Great.
Okay. Any other questions?
I have one.
Okay.
In your intended use of the property,
Yes.
one of the things is convalescent.
That probably is not a proper term, more of a respite place. Just last week, I had an elderly member whose AC was out during the hottest week of the year. And had this been available to that elderly lady, she could have came there and stayed the week, indefinitely until
Yeah,
her
I
home
see
could
that.
be repaired.
But might that also include people who have a drug issue?
That's not our goal. That's not our goal.
I'm not asking if it's your goal, I'm asking if it might be used for that.
That's not our intention, no. It's not our intention. Because we can't deal with those kind of issues. The church is not prepared to deal with the kind of issues that come along with that type of situation.
Okay.
Has this been approved by your board or congregation?
It's been approved by the elders of the church. It has not been presented to the congregation as a whole.
Okay.
Okay, Pastor Stacy, it's an opportunity for us to highlight the other good things about the organization you come from, New Beginnings, and your resource center. So always want to throw a big shout out for all you all do there.
Thank you.
And then again, Gary will get in touch with you ASAP and
That'd
feed
be
you that
great.
information, and we'll see what we can do to get you to the finish line. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, council, the next item on the agenda would be the approval of the general fund proposed budget revision number 1 for the 2021 fiscal year. So I'll run down through this real quick to see if there are any questions. Obviously, as you can see noted, council, we're going to carry forward an additional $546,691, bringing it to a grand total carry forward to date of $1,653,726. The next line down, you'll see, council, that we're actually reducing the projection on revenue from hotel motel by $150,000. So that line item previously was at $450,000, now it's at $300,000. The other thing that we're doing, council, is we have set the arena and conference center up under its own tax ID. It's still under the operations of the city, but it's in its own tax ID, so we're backing out of the budget in the rents and concession, which was where our projection of the conference center revenue was. We're backing that back out, which was $390,400, which brings that line item, rents and concessions, down to $40,000. So then for the budget expenditures, going back up to that number, and this gets real tricky here because we've got an increase and a decrease, and it kind of almost washes out, but we still have increases in the budget from the standpoint of the $546,691 that we're adding. So laying $50,000 of that in council contributions. We have grant monies that we're carrying forward out of the last fiscal year budget for the Forestry Council that's in a partnership with the state of West Virginia. So we're their original budget, we're adding those carry forward grant monies, $5,390 to their contractual and $350 to their commodities, bringing the total to $20,390 in contractual, $5,350 in commodities. Next, in City Hall contractual, we're increasing that by $75,000, which will bring the grand total to $165,000. And we've had these monies that we've been continuing to carry in the budget to do the remodel at City Hall that we previously discussed. I'll highlight it. Looking at moving all of our administrative into one office at City Hall. Of course, that will happen when DNR vacates the building. Actually got an update even today on their building. The cement right now, the foundation is curing, and they're estimating the actual contract date with the state on the DNR building completion is the beginning of next year, actually the beginning of February. But if construction stays on course in this pandemic, who knows what could happen. Right now they're estimating that they could be occupying that building maybe sometime in the month of November. So those monies are in the next fiscal year budget, and that's something that we will still look at, is that possibility of remodeling at City Hall. The next item is a decrease in confiscated property. The line item to make it balance at the beginning of the year, we projected that there was going to be $73,500 in the police confiscated property account. We're decreasing that by $649, so you can see brings that line item to $72,851. The next line item, the street department contractual, adding $150,000 in that line item. I'd like to add $120,000 to the paving. That would bring the paving for next fiscal year to $220,000, and add another additional to sidewalks, which would bring sidewalks next year to $60,000 by $30,000 that it currently sets at, bringing that total line item to $450,000. Would also like to add another $47,000 to the street department capital outlay, and that would be for the purchase of a new skid steer. Parks and Recreation contractual, I'd like to add $50,000 to that, and that would be the beginning of city beautification for any beautification projects we may have in the future. Next would be fairs and festivals, commodities. adding $20,000, which would be monies that we're putting in there that are kind of CARES Act monies. That's the line item where we are spending some of the CARES Act monies just because there's not a specific line item for them. And you can see that we're running city promotions out of there, and that's where we're running the feeding program that we're currently running for the seniors at the Nicholas County Senior Center here, or the Summersville Senior Center. I think we go by Nicholas County Senior Center. Yeah, it is. But anyway, that's our feeding program that we are continuing to operate, and right now it's set to be in operation through the end of August by the city, and we are getting fully refunded through the CARES Act for all of those efforts, including all of the food and all of the personnel and labor that we have involved. Then the next thing is the youth center contractual, adding $30,000. This is the old main gym, and that will be for gymnasium maintenance. And then, of course, now we're on to the decreases because we removed the arena and conference center because we're operating it under its own tax ID. You can see that we backed out the $279,000 in personal services. The arena contractual, we decreased by $22,200 because the $250 that you'll see that's always been in our budget pays for the utilities, and the maintenance man that we jointly use up here contracted with the West Virginia Army National Guard, and that $250 also covers our bond payments that we still make on the facility. Finally, it would be a reduction of $154,600 in arena commodities, and again, just because we backed that back out of our budget, running it on its own tax ID. Lastly would be putting $110,000 in contingencies, and as you know, council, those are monies that we lay in the budget that can't be expended without council's approval. So what I would like to do first is entertain a motion of approval.
Move to approve.
We have a first and a second, I think was Councilman Underwood. Councilman Underwood. Council, any questions about any of this proposed revision number 1? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion so carries. Council, the next budget revision number 1 for the 2020 budget, or 2021 budget, would be our coal severance fund. And as you can see, we're actually decreasing that by $1,289. These are actual carry forward funds. We projected that we were going to carry forward a balance of $11,825. We actually ended up with a carry forward of $10,536, with a projection of this year's tax being around $10,000, so we budgeted $10,000. So that brings the new subtotal of the coal severance to $20,536. As required by coal severance, that the budget has to be spent on public safety. You can see that we have earmarked the full $20,536 for public safety. Just as a little adage for you, council, we showed you the final numbers of the 1920 budget and expenditures of coal severance. So what I would do is entertain a motion for the revision number 1 of the 2021 City of Summersville Coal Severance Fund budget.
Move to approve.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Okay, council, any questions about the coal severance? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion so carries. Council, the next thing we need to do is update to Title 87, Series 4 of the State Building Code to bring our code official and his efforts in compliance. You were mailed out a package, or in your packet you were mailed out that actual correspondence and requirement from the Office of the State Fire Marshal, the Department of Homeland Security. The following changes, we're omitting reference to International Fire Code and substituting NFPA Life Safety Code, and you can see 20158, and when they put a line through the 5. I don't know what that means, but I'm sure that's some legal thing. Then the next would be the 2017 edition of the National Electric Code, NFPA 70, for renovation in 1 and 2 family homes where no new square footage is involved. Arc fault circuit interpreters, AFCI protections shall not be required except in bedrooms. For renovation in 1 and 2 family homes where square footage is added but no electrical service is installed, arc fault circuit interpreters, AFCI protections shall not be required. The final entry in the code reads, all building codes previously adopted by local jurisdictions are null and void. Therefore, any and all jurisdictions who wish to have a recognized and adopted state building code, which we do, will be required to adopt the new version by August 1st, 2020, and send a copy of the new adoption ordinance reflecting such action to our office for filing after such action is completed. So after we approve this tonight, it will be forwarded to the State Fire Marshal and the Department of Homeland Security that we have adopted their new recommendations. And of course, we kind of have to because we have adopted the state building code. I'll entertain a motion for adoption.
Move to approve.
We have a first
Second.
and a second. Okay, council, do you have any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion so carries. Council, the next item on the agenda would be discussion approval of Bright Horizons grant funding change request. Council, you were also mailed the correspondence on that, and as you see, says the grant was originally written for new equipment in our graphics department. Since then, the pandemic has placed this department in jeopardy due to decreased sales and increase in supply cost. I'm writing you to see if council would approve us using this grant money for other needs in the graphics department, and then such as supplies, utility costs, while we wait the pandemic to lift. I completely understand if this is not possible. Of course, this request came in, council. These are council grants, so therefore it's before you, and as to whether you would want to do this or not. So what I would like to do, just for formality, is put it in the form of a motion and then open it up for discussion as to what you all wish to do.
Move to approve.
We have a first
Second.
and a second. Now discussion. Council.
I think it's reasonable to do this. It's a $1,000 grant, I believe.
Yes, sir. Jim, I didn't hear. I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said before that.
I said it's a $1,000 grant, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think it's a reasonable thing to do.
Okay.
I do too.
Reasonable. Anybody have any other questions? Okay. Let me prepare you, council. I am aware of other phone calls, so this might not be, this might not be the only request. Sometimes you can anticipate this happens for two reasons. One, the pandemic that we're in and the stress that that's brought on many of the agencies that were before us. But two, sometimes when we can't fund to the extent that maybe we have in the past, some of them may not be able to do what they set out to do, so therefore they might come back for additional requests. All of those will be approved by you. So having no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion so carries. The next thing that we need approval for is an appointment of William B.J. Smith to the Summersville Planning and Zoning Commission for a 3-year term expiring June 30th, 2023.
Move to approve.
We have a first
Second.
and a second. And council, I do apologize. I think the request has been before that we bring these people in. That is my shortcoming. I forgot to notify them to tell them to be here tonight. We were excited about the fact that we got BJ, and then of course the next one to sign up. What I will say about BJ is, just so everybody knows, he does live at the end of Starbuck Road, And BJ currently works for the power company, has for some time, and he's in a leadership role here locally with the power company. So from the standpoint that he's a resident and the role that he already plays for the community, I think he's well in tune with our community. Anybody else want to add anything? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
We have a first and a second. Again, discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion so carries. The next item on the agenda would be to appoint Jimmy Joe Wedge, who lives on Dominic Circle. Jimmy comes to us from the Valley. He's been a Summersville resident for some time. Actually, in his resume is a former mayor. So Jimmy is well informed as to planning and zoning and its purpose. Had a very good conversation with him, as well as I know Gary did too. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve Jimmy Joe Wedge. Okay, we have a first and a second. Any discussion or anybody want to add anything additional? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And what I did fail to mention in that, I should have said that Jimmy Joe Wedge is filling the unexpired term of Jerry Cox, and his term will run actually from today to June 30th of 2022. Okay. All right, and both of those individuals have made contact with the city recorder, and who plans to give some orientation along with. We also have our planning and zoning chairman, Craig Chapman, with us tonight. So, Craig, we've now filled you back up. You have a full board. Okay, next would be the recorder's report.
No reports.
No report this evening. Okay, the mayor's report. Okay, council, there's several things I want to kind of fill you in on. In staying compliant with our water plant, I want you to know that the 2018 Water Infrastructure Act requires us as a city to do a risk and resilience assessment on our water plant and have it completed by June 30th of 2021. So before this came our source water protection, which when the first source water protection came out, and really council, this is all the regulatory and compliance, both really from federal government, when we had all these water crises at the different water entities. You'll remember Flint, Michigan. I believe we also had one down in Charleston here in our state. This is kind of all of the checks and balances and regulation that came in after those kind of incidents. So by law, we were required to do source water protection. When that was first rolled out a little over 5 years ago, the state paid for the second round. I will tell you, we're in the process of completing our second round. We used Tetra Tech engineering firm, and right now that is all but complete except for the dots that need to be dotted and the T's crossed by our health department. With that said, we've put out for bid our requirement of risk and resilience assessment. And tonight, I would like you to, actually not approving, we've already approved by the bid process. Actually, Thomas and Litton was awarded or will be awarded that bid. We still need to kick the contract to Greg for review, but for $12,500. Interesting enough, the next closest to their bid was about 42% away. So it was just unreal where they came in compared to the others. Actually, this risk and resilience is supposed to be a much easier process because a lot of the information from our source water protection flows right into this. So I just wanted to report to you that we're working to make sure that we are compliant and have that completed by June 30th of 2021. Council, also I want to note that the Building Commission will meet tomorrow to approve, as you heard tonight, they will meet to approve the ECF deal with WVU SRMC. Also want you to know, council, and I'll pass them down here, you have received thank yous from the Friends Our Fund, from the Nicholas County Community Foundation, and New Beginnings Resource Centers on your grants that were awarded by council to those entities. The last, no, I got a couple more things here I want to give you information on. So council, you were kicked out, and if you didn't get it, please let us know at this time. Gary, the city recorder, kicked out or had kicked out to you all the dog kennel and the C1, C2, and C3 ordinance that has been approved after a public hearing at P&Z and by the Planning and Zoning Commission or Board. So now it's kicked to us, City Council. So Gary sent all that information to you, and I want you to know on the August 10th meeting, which Gary will be chairing as the city's mayor, for me, you all are going to discuss as a body those ordinances, okay? It's not going to be the public hearing, and it's not going to be public dialogue. What we're asking is that you review that information. If there's any questions or concerns that you all have, you ask them at that time. Then the next meeting on the 24th of August, we're set to have a public hearing and then council's approval. Okay, so what we're doing is giving you all the opportunity to review them and have discussion on the August 10th meeting. So please take some time, review those. At that meeting, Gary plans on giving you a 250 to 500 foot level review on where we were and what those ordinances changes to. The other thing I wanted to do, council, is give you an update on the CARES Act with the city of Summersville. Let me find my paperwork. So to date, I want you to know that we have submitted a total of $463,995.40 for reimbursement in the CARES Act. We've actually been awarded $277,648.69. We've actually only received, we've got some funds that are still pending. We've actually, of that $277,000 in the bank, we have already received $149,680. Just as information, you might think, geez, where are we coming up with that kind of a return from the CARES Act? The state of West Virginia has made the decision that they are fully refunding law enforcement through the CARES Act. So we are applying and getting refunded by the CARES Act 100% of our law enforcement payroll. In addition to that, we've got our feeding programs. We're still getting reimbursed PPE that the city's purchasing and kicking out, not only as operation of the city. And the other thing that was just approved in our last reimbursement because of the additional sanitary efforts that we had to put in place and we continue to operate daily with at the wastewater treatment plant, we are now being reimbursed labor and all of those costs of the operation of our wastewater treatment plant. Again, we'll continue. When I said that we've submitted, our June claim was actually $134,955, and it's not been approved yet, but I certainly expect that it will. Anyway, just kind of wanted to give you an update of where we're at with the CARES Act. Next, I want you to know, City Council, that we just received information from the U.S. Department of Justice that the City of Summersville, in a congratulatory way, has been awarded a grant for $125,000 for a police officer. We believe, in compliance with this federal grant, that we can use the police officer that we have in the hopper that's not certified yet. In compliance with this program, that's our intention, that will help us pay for that officer that we're adding to the department. This is a $125,000 federal grant for 3 years from the Department of Justice. So Wanted to make that announcement tonight too. And then the last thing that I would like to highlight in a very positive way, we are blessed tonight to have a milestone with us. And it's 80 years milestone. And this week we have a councilman in our presence that turns 80 years old. So council, tonight, before you leave the chambers, we have a birthday cake for Gene. We will not sing happy birthday, Gene, because that might be awful. But in a real big way, we certainly want to wish Gene a happy birthday and thank him for his many contributions to this community and certainly to this governing body. So Gene, happy 80th birthday.
Well, I think, I hope I have a few more years left.
Yes, sir. We do too. Okay, that concludes the mayor's report. Council reports. I took all the air out of the room. Okay, so council, what I would do is I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. I would ask you in a respectful way that as you depart, please put your mask back on. With that said, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Here, having a first, we need a second. We got a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Council, thank you. Motion so carries. Have a good evening.